Ah, yes, the good old days. No OSHA, no pesky environmental rules. Equipment operators had cute nicknames like Lefty, Stumpy, Gimpy, Hopalong, and One-Eyed Jack. Common sense ruled the day. Life expectancy was about 45 years, and things like tuberculosis, malaria, smallpox, leprosy, and polio were just part of life. Between 1930 and 1940, 26% of children in the U.S. died within the first year of life. No vaccines to magnetize your arm back then. There just weren't any. No worry about getting Alzheimer's, as you wouldn't live long enough for it to manifest. But it was these pioneers who made America great. They were hard-working, God-fearing, country-loving people with no power grid, telephones, plumbing, or heat. Kids were taught to stay out of the road if you don't want to get run over, and other great survival hints. Not so much anymore. Now we have to set rules to protect people from themselves and to assign blame. Nice Gibson there, Don. There were no injuries caused by that sound effect. It's just fake news. This looks like a good spot to talk about safety. We take safety very seriously at all our shows and implement and follow all rules established by our national affiliate, Early Days Gas Engine and Tractor Association. Nothing can ruin a show more than someone getting hurt. Exhibits are set 6 feet back from fencing and must be attended while operating. Loading and unloading heavy equipment is inherently dangerous and requires close attention and paced thought. Trailering this old iron is one aspect of our hobby that is just hard labor. Sharing when requested by experienced help is appreciated. If it were not for this aspect of our hobby, it would be perfect. Old iron on a trailer has a lot of potential energy. Don't be behind it when it becomes kinetic. Getting ready for the show is ongoing 365. It reaches critical mass in the weeks just before the show. It takes 12 engineers, 23 supervisors, and 3 workers to get the grounds ready. Mowing, pruning, irrigating, marking fire lanes, laying out loading and unloading zones, delineating exhibitor and vendor spaces, parking lots and trailer parking areas, setting up benches, picnic tables, signs, tents, and displays. Garbage cans are distributed. Water barrels for firefighting and engine cooling are placed around the showgrounds. Garbage cans will need attention daily once the show starts. Porta potties are cleaned. Hand wash stations set up. Good leaders need good followers, and we are lucky to have both. With the final setup of the parking lot, the show prep is complete. The staff can unload their equipment now, park their equipment trailers in the recently designated area, set up the RV in the recently pruned campgrounds, and take a well-earned break. This year's swap meet is being set up in the horse arena. These people go to a lot of different swap meets throughout the year, and they are very efficient at setting up their tents and displaying their wares. Getting ready for a big crowd tomorrow. Well, let's hope it shows up and the weather holds. With the sun going down, final touches are added to displays and exhibits. This is close enough for the girls we go with. Let's get this party started.
Nothing finer, lemon pledge.
Let's get back to these Gibsons. Harry Gibson founded Gibson Manufacturing Company in 1933, headquartered in Seattle, Washington. He manufactured railroad speeders for the logging industry. Harry recognized that railroad speeders could only carry 4 people and filled a niche market with his speeders, carrying 25 to 100 or so loggers at a time. A full crew could be hauled to a site by rail under its own power. No need for a locomotive to pull the car. Narrow gauge tracks were laid to extract logs by steam locomotive, but there were no roads in the dense forest. The company began to experiment with tractors in 1946, but World War II had made good-paying jobs in shipyards and aircraft manufacturing drive up the cost of labor in the Seattle area. Looking for cheaper labor, Wilbur Gibson moved the company to Longmont, Colorado, near Denver. Wilbur spent millions of dollars developing his first production tractor, the Model A, which was powered by a 6-horsepower Wisconsin engine. Later models D, SD, and Super D were powered with a 6-horsepower Wisconsin air-cooled Model AEH engine. Some early Ds had a 9-horsepower engine. The A came with a 3-speed transmission and steering brakes on the rear wheels. Gibson's came with a full range of implements, and early models were steered by lever. The Model SD followed and was the first to sport a hood, grille, and fenders. Fenders were optional for the D. A 12-horsepower Wisconsin and the first steering wheel showed up with the introduction of the Model Super D. Production of full-size models began around 1948 with the Model H. It had 25 horsepower and is equipped with a 4-cylinder Hercules engine. My short-term memory is not so good, and neither is my short-term memory, so instead of being a YouTube expert, I suggest you go to the Gibson website to get the straight facts. Also, a side trip to Helene Curtis and their role in World War II would be an interesting thing to check out. The club built an operating sawmill on the showgrounds that is used to demonstrate how lumber was made around 1900. The rumley is belted to the saw blade and carriage. The decked logs are then converted to a cant by establishing a reference cut. The cant is rotated, dogged down, and the width of the next cut is determined by the operator positioning the carriage. I will do a separate video on the mill and how it came to be here on the showgrounds in our next video. I will also do a video later on the rumley itself. It is quite an interesting piece of engineering.
Benches here in front of the announcer stand if you want to watch the parade. No shade.
All right, let's take a look at some engines. Marine engines were used by the log industry. They were used in tugboats and tenders to transport saw logs and rafts to the mills, and by the mosquito fleet that transported farm produce to large towns along the west coast. There were no roads, but the water made for a great highway system. The Hicks engine shown here was made in Yuba City, California. A lot of marine engines were built in California, and this Atlas was made in Oakland. Pumping water on the farm was a daily necessity. With this system, you could pump by hand if the engine wouldn't start. My grandfather had a Baker monitor with a pump jack on it that filled a tank high up in the air. As soon as the tank was filled, he would drain to the cattle troughs out in the cattle barn. He would fill oak buckets and take them up on the back porch for washing hands and faces. No plumbing in the house, so you didn't have to worry about any pipes freezing. Wood for the stove, unless you wanted a cold bath, could be cut with an axe, an economy engine, or a buzzsaw belted to the truck. This lightweight backpack pump was used by the Forest Service to fight fire. This two-piston Hardy pump was used to accumulate pressure for high-pressure applications. It used copper balls as check valves inside. This Fitch 4 drive is quite interesting, and its history is connected to Australia and the United States. I'll do a separate video on it later. This thing is a beast to drive, and it will beat you to a pulp. Here's the club president manhandling it into position by the main stage. It will rest there for the remainder of the show, as it's just too slow to get in the parade. It's Monday and we're exhausted, But it was a great show, thanks to all who brought equipment and participated and attended. Don't be sad that it's over. Be glad that it happened at all. That's a quote from a famous doctor, Dr. Zeus.